I have a few experiences which I could relate, if you don't mind reading through a non-green text story. When I was young, my mother and I used to take long nighttime drives through the countryside, while visiting my aunt in British Columbia. My affinity for the strange and disturbing might be partially attributed to these nocturnal adventures. My mother is the adventurous sort, and loves nature more than anything, and I enjoyed the strange and sort of emptiness and solitude which the night afforded me. Sometimes we would listen to the radio, but mostly, we just looked out at the road winding in front of us. Nighttime in the country is an awesome sight to behold for someone like me who spent the majority of the year in the lamppost-lighted suburbs of Montreal, for it is so dense as to obscure nearly all detail not directly illuminated by artificial means. I used to try and imagine, for my own entertainment, what strange and terrifying secrets lay just out of view of the headlights, or half spied in the shadows. It was a cheap thrill to face such uncertainty, comforted by my position in the car, which, in the end, offered no real protection from what could have been out there, save for its mobility. One night, my mother and aunt stopped the car just off to the side of the road and told me that we were going for a nighttime hike. Now, I admit that the loss of comfort given to me by the car may have exaggerated my perception of events, but I can tell you that everything I tell you actually happened. Now, don't ask me why my aunt thought that this was a good idea. She was always more of a person of impulse than one of foresight. She was the kind of person who had a bear as a pet in the 40s and confronted escaped lunatics in her time as a cleaner for an asylum. It was approximately 2 minutes into the walk that we discovered the burned out remains of a bullet-torn Volkswagen Beetle in a ditch to our left. I told them that now would be a prudent time to turn back, but they told me that the wreckage looked rusted and had probably been there for weeks or maybe even years. This did not reassure me, nor did the discovery of that car's door some 200 meters down the trail. I comforted myself, as all boys and for that matter many men do, by finding a heavy stick and holding it tightly. It was about 5 minutes or so later that my mother walked closer to me and told me in a hushed tone that someone was following the same trail behind us. I wondered if I were capable of making any use out of my damp stump against a grown man should anything happen, but even at this young age, I knew that I did not stand a chance, and neither did my mother and elderly aunt. The three of us slowed down the uphill path, so as to try and turn back before going any further away from our vehicle, but just as we turned back, the men darted into the woods. All I could make out was a worn, green rain poncho. This, despite the fact that it was not raining and had not rained that day. We made it back safely to the car and left in a hurry. To this day, my mother does not admit that the late night excursion was a bad idea. When I was 13, I helped my aunt move from her home in BC to my hometown near Montreal. As I have already stated, my aunt was impulsive and quite adventurous, both of which contributed to our coming into contact with many strange people. I believe it was somewhere in the prairies that we attracted the unwanted attention of a strange man in a Zeller's diner. My mother was the first to notice his stare and alerted us to his presence. I don't remember much of his appearance other than his eyes. They were the sickly pale irises of a man with cataracts, but his glare was too focused for him to have been so afflicted. He never took his eyes off of us, not even to drink his coffee. In retrospect, I do not recall him staring at any of us in particular, just that we were being watched closely by a greyish man who made no effort to conceal his interest and did not look away once noticed. We thought it was quite creepy, but nothing more, and left without any incident. When I say we, I mean to say my mother and I, for my aunt just felt sorry for who she believed to be a lonely man. I would not remember the incident if it were not for the fact that later in the evening, and many miles away, we saw him again in a room opposite ours at the motel we were staying at. Still, my aunt would not have thought ill of the man had he not still been observing us at the threshold of his room. His door inched open, wearing nothing but an open bathrobe. We called the front desk, who must have called the police. Once the police left, the man could still be seen staring at a room through his blinds. I did not get much sleep that night and barricaded the front door just in case. We left early in the morning, not wanting to be near that person 1 moment longer than necessary, and as we pulled out of the parking lot, we saw him run out of his room, still in his dressing gown and giving up after a few feet. This final one happened to me when I was too young to remember, but I am assured of its authenticity, though I take her interpretation of it with a grain of salt. When I was a baby, my mother traveled with me on a Greyhound bus. Now, being an attractive woman and having traveled quite often on long bus rides, she was no stranger to creeps or even the mentally unbalanced bothering her. On this occasion, however, she tells me the person who assaulted her was not merely deranged. A strange old woman had come up to her and, acting quite sweet initially, asked to see me. My mother felt that something was off about this woman and said no. As she refused, the woman's eyes, I am told, turned milky, and she began screeching and clawing wildly after me. Thankfully, she was stopped by fellow passengers and escorted off of the bus, though she never ceased screaming. To this day, my mother is convinced that the woman was an energy vampire. Like I said, I take her interpretation of the events with a grain of salt. Here is a story my mom told me a while back. She swears that it is true. This happened a long time ago, while I was too young to remember any of this. It might be a bit long, so bear with me. I grew up in a third world country. Grew up almost dirt poor. I was taught and became fluent in English while I was yet a kid. I became friends with this English-speaking kid. Let's call him Mike. I think he was half white or something. Mike was from a wealthy family now, at least from my family's poverty-stricken point of view. We went to the same church, and that is where we met. Other kids our age could not speak English, so I was his only friend at that time. We hit it off immediately and became buddies. I get to meet him only once a week, but only during church, because the family lived a bit of a ways away, and the only time they ever came close to our place was when they went to church. One day, out of the blue, his family comes by our house, dressed up all nice, and with food and presents. When asked what the occasion was, they claimed that I told them it was my dad's birthday, and that they were invited. Apparently, I have been calling and speaking with Mike on the phone almost every night since our meeting. For the past couple of nights, I have been talking about my dad's birthday party and told them that they were invited. Apparently I have been calling and speaking with Mike on the phone almost every day and for the past couple of nights, and I've been talking about my dad's birthday party. Here's the problem though. It wasn't my dad's birthday. We didn't have a home phone, and we didn't have their contact info, and I still don't know how to use a phone. We were close to dirt poor, and landlines back in the day, at least where I am from, were further well off. When my mom explained this to them, they could not believe it. They said that whoever they spoke with on the phone sounded and spoke exactly the way I did. But after being told all of this, they began to realize that there were some things off about my calls. I only called at night, which was kind of weird because since there was so much more time to call during the day. They recall hearing weird sounds in the background, like the dogs barking or howling. We did not have dogs. And lastly, I gave them the wrong address to my home. They knew our real address, so they did not go to the address given to them. They stay for the day, even though it was not my dad's birthday, and later leave in the evening. My mom later hears from Mike's mom that the person pretending to be me calls them again later that night, asks them why they did not come by. They at first play along, giving excuses why they could not go and apologize. He then demands to talk to Mike. They will not let him. They then decide to ask the person questions that only I or my family could answer. He couldn't, and this makes him frustrated. He gets angry, and still sounding like me, he starts to swear. He says a couple of nasty things, and then drops the phone. They never hear from him again. My mom, being the superstitious third world mom that she was, had our house blessed after that. I'm not really sure what happened to that family. My mom does not either. Oh, and that address. They looked it up later on, and found out that it was of a cemetery. This happened to me back in 2015 or 2016. This was when my ex-boyfriend and I went camping in Mendocino, California. A few sites over from us was this tiny, green one-person tent. It was the kind that barely fits a single body. What struck me right away was how empty the site looked. There was no cooler, no chairs, no lantern, no shoes outside. It was just a little tent, zipped up tight. We went to bed, and sometime after 10 p.m. is when it started. We started hearing laughter. It wasn't some rowdy group sitting around a fire and telling jokes. It didn't sound like the laughter of people who had drank one too many and didn't realize how loud they were being. It could not be mistaken for anything else either. This was human laughter. At first I thought maybe it was a radio or a Bluetooth speaker, but it never stopped, not once. It was just this insane, unbroken laughter, and whoever was laughing did not even stop to take a breath. All night long until sunrise. Same tone, same rhythm, no pauses for breath. It was too steady and too repetitive to be a person in psychosis or on drugs. It sounded, mechanical, like a loop. You would think that after all that time, a voice would break or grow tired, but it never did. That is what makes it worse. Because if it wasn't someone actually laughing, then it was someone who had recorded laughter beforehand and brought it out into the woods. They recorded it just to sit in that tiny tent in the dark and listen to it for hours. When we woke up around 6:30 or 7 a.m., the laughter was still going. We packed up fast and left without ever seeing who or what was inside that tent. And even now, years later, I can't shake the thought that someone actually decided that that was how they wanted to spend the night. A tent, a recording of endless laughter, in the silence of the woods all around them. Not me, but a friend of mine is a ranger up near around the Canadian border, NY side. I asked him for his most unnerving story. He was patrolling down the rivers and the lakes, using a snowmobile since it was quicker than using it on trails. He is checking on the shelters since they had a habit of collapsing under the heavy snowfall. Hours into his pass, he noticed some markings near the edge of the lake. He went over and noticed some blood near the beach. The blood was on the ice, but went up to a rock face and went up. There is a blood trail right up a cliff, going for about 30 feet. He could see where the blood went over the lip of the cliff. He took the time to drive around to where there was an opening, stopped his snowmobile, and made a hike up. He reached the top of the cliff after around 10 minutes. The blood trail from the cliff face went on around 20 more feet till it led to a deer carcass. There is trampled snow all around the carcass. The ass of the deer is eaten, but that is it. He could not make out the tracks. He checked the deer. It was not a hunter. They would have started skinning, gutting, taking it away. It wasn't a mountain lion. They are not strong enough to lug a 150+ pound deer 30 feet up a snowy rock face, and it was not a bear. A bear could not climb a cliff either. He noticed that the deer was not too cold either. Maybe been dead for like an hour max. He got up, put his hand to his Glock, and walked back to his snowmobile. Then he drove off. He admits that he has zero idea what could have done that to the deer, but knew that whatever did it was probably still around and was just scared off because it heard his snowmobile approach. Just an unnerving story from a guy who loves the outdoors and usually has an answer for everything. Mutant clanking humanoid chasing me and screaming at me. Be me. I was out on a night walk literally just now. I was unarmed because, bong, I am going to walk across the field near the river. I enter the field. Suddenly, there is this loud screaming speech that I can hear, but it's not speech. It's like the cadence of speech, but just noise. I hear it and it's just random sounds mixed together. Lol, what? I stand there. It happens again. It's closer now. I do a 360 and walk away. I put some distance between me and the field. I hear it again. The sounds are still coming from the field. I just keep on walking. I walk back out to the main road. I hear it again. It's halfway up the side street I just walked up, and it is screaming louder. I take a look back as I cross the main street. Clank. I hear a huge metallic clank on the pavement as I just see its weird, shambling form silhouetted in the darkness. There are no lights around. They turn all the street lights out at night here. It's this weird humanoid shape, but longer legs, one rigid leg, a hobbling fast gait. The torso is about human length. I hear the clank again as it moves the rigid leg. I turn and take the next turn, turning the opposite way, out the main street. It screams again, but in the middle, the I sound that it makes becomes like a high-pitched squeal. I start slow running up the street because what the fuck is this thing, and why is it pursuing me? I take the footpath, cutting across between this road and the other side of the river, from where I can cut around to home and get inside. Now, this clanking noise that it makes is really fucking loud. Like imagine carrying a fucking massive gas canister and dropping it every time you take a step on that side. I run up this footpath faster because this thing is definitely following me. I'm about 1/3 of the way up. It's pretty long. I hear it scream again. It is still clanking. I take a glance back to the road. It is silhouetted there. I'd say it's like 7 feet tall. It's scrawny but muscle build, like it's just muscle and not much in the way of anything else. It doesn't even seem to care how its head hangs. It just moves its body. The head wobbles around. Its rigid leg looks like it's just some sort of thing. Not natural, but made of something. It swings it. Clank. Fuck this. I run to near the end of the path while it's still on the road. I slow up as I round the last corner, just fast walking. I head to the bridge over the river. There are 2 stoners sitting on the bench near the bridge. I just walk past and cross the bridge. Hopefully they might distract it or something if it comes up here. As I cross the bridge, I can hear it in the distance. It screams again. Again, the voice kind of breaks and becomes high-pitched on the I sound that it makes. I proceed to fast walk my way around the loop towards home. I think I can hear clanking in the distance, but I am further now. I can't be sure for certain, or if it's my heightened senses just creating it. If I'm that far away from it, it's good anyway. I cut through this little alleyway to a long side street that links up onto the road that I live on. Clank on the wind. It's down near where it came out onto the main road. For fuck's sake. I walk a little way up the side road to hear better. I hear it again. Clank. Waiting here for a bit and then clank. Wait. Clank. Repeat waiting. Listening. It's walking up the main road. I wait as it moves. I'm listening to its position. It's coming up this way. I hear it clanking up. Screams again. My heart rate speeds up a bit again. Clank. Wait. Clank. It's nearly at the top of the side street, probably about 10 meters away. I am about 500 meters down it though. For fuck's sake, I just want to go home, you horrible foul beast. Clank. Wait. Clank. It's getting more distant. It's turned off up the road opposite this one, heading away. Clank. I match its pace and walk up towards the top of the road. As I come to the corner at the top, I wait around out of sight of the main road, listening to it clank up and away for a minute. As it becomes more distant, I emerge on the main road and make my way down it towards home. And obviously, I arrived safely home and it didn't get me. Any ideas what this abomination might be? It was fucking weird. It didn't speak. Just like it was trying to do something like speak, with tone and noise, but screaming instead. This wasn't creepy, but just terrifying. Like a video game scenario, but in real life, and I've got no weapons on me, no medkits or stims. It definitely knew it could not keep up when I ran, and seemed to loop around the block, patrolling after I evaded it. I guess it either went looking for me, thinking I might return, or maybe to find some other prey. It's fucking weird, X. It's at least semi-intelligent, and it's not all organic. The clunk sounded so metallic. It was dark out, so I couldn't take any, and I was not letting it get close enough for a flash on my phone. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. I'm gonna tell you something and you maybe won't believe me. This is what I saw. Every word here unless clarified is as I saw it, how I saw it, and although not necessarily what it was, what I think it is. Some background. I joined the army after high school, drifting through life unmotivated. I left the army at 24. I did mundane office shit, nothing at all glamorous or interesting. I did have a clearance though. This matters later. Not a particularly good soldier, or human for that matter. Back in real world, I bounced from job to job, bored and directionless. When I was 27, I applied to do some office work at a research center that was a contractor to a large European pharmaceutical company. Clerical shit. I actually kind of enjoy it. About 6 months in, I start a new role working with chemists and other scientists, developing new base products, delivery methods, and ways to have drugs develop or soak in the body better. That's basically the gist, but again, I'm pretty dumb. I was basically a project coordinator type thing. Again, I'm a loser in life. I take an offshore thing others have done. No family to tie me down. I get processed for a new role. Set up in France, basically helping these docs align drugs and relevant regulations, sort different scenarios, light advisory stuff. Guess you can call it compliance. One day it comes up I have an active clearance. Because of this, I am offered another position in Turkey, basically doing the same thing, but because it's more clandestine and dangerous environment with threat actors, they wanted someone military, / not a moron, / someone who could be trusted. TSSCI preferred, since they didn't want any corporate espionage, and also worked tightly on some contracts with intel / government agencies. Once I'm here, I get to know some of the pharma guys. A guy named Lem becomes my main guy I work for. Kinda like his, receptionist. One of Lem's oldest accounts is a company called something like PharmCap, or something cheesy generic, I can't remember. I do lots of intake, spec on his account. Basically, they are massive, the biggest for our entire wing of this huge company. I handle a very specific area for them, so obviously I don't know the whole thing, but Lem was one of their main contacts, here, from what I pieced together. PharmCap is clearly thick as shit. By now, a few years on, I had come to know who is who in the industry, and worked with lots of other companies, or at least, heard / saw them and whatnot over the years. This was a shell, through and through, but nobody said anything. Me and Lem have a good rapport, since his wife was American. Eventually, one day I'm like, dude, what the fuck is PharmCap, and why do they buy so much? Lem shuts me down immediately and scolds me. Roger, soft spot. Whatever, move on. After some time, my curiosity grows. Eventually, one day in my filing system, I decide to fuck it and see what I can find on our enterprise resource system. I had no reason not to have access to pretty much all of it. I click PharmCap. The account is registered in the Cayman Islands. The procurement executive is John Dominic, and our one-to-one team, who I never met and only had calls with, during which it was a different person every time, was Nicky Dominic, the most uncreative shit ever. They have over the years done something like 2.7 billion. Holy fuck. Eventually I get bored. I try and search for some other products and investigate after our role is done to see an application. Oftentimes, companies liaise their results and findings with us so we can try spec drive out more effective products. This is a whole other system. When I try and open it, I get a classified special project or something, basically saying it is sensitive. Oh wait, I remember I have a clearance over here. I try and badge in. My face when it actually works. Once I am in, it is absolute diamonds. The company uses our products in various programs sorted by a few different parameters. Ones that jumped out to me were science and tech, biowarfare and chem warfare, psycho and drug, stasis, cancer, conditions. Each had their own sub-project, with each having a name like eyeglass or white bird. Tracking was insanely good, very organized. I start clicking through. At this point I am totally invested in this shit. I spend the next 4 hours diving so deep, my ears ruptured. I don't remember all of them, but there were so many. Each could be a pasta of its own. A few I remember were Project Dove, designed to get spec tech, biologics, environmental, and climate control with chem to keep humans in a state of living for, and I quote, a time of at least 2,000 years, assuming an environment of complete isolation, such as one found in space travel. There was also Project Echo, which was really dark, and had lots of documents from Saddam and co. Children, and their wicked shit. An aspect of it was a study done in Iraqi prisoners in a black site prison to try and turn devout Muslims into carriers who, while acting normal, infect other terrorist cells and expire at a set time after infecting each other in no or low symptom states, aiming to wipe out entire networks. DNA experimentation was involved in this one. Also general suggestibility stuff. There was honestly so much. I think the mind-altering stuff in that category was around espionage and spying, trying to suggest others and elicit them into betraying flags or flipping. Also incidentally, lots of extremely unethical stuff like torture and disappearances. But, the host, the fucking host. Under somewhere in the precursors area was the host specimen. This host, I guess, from what I read again and again, and I could be completely wrong, was a fucking alien life form or something. Something that was either alien or so rare that you can't even imagine. They talk about this thing like it's the second coming. Apparently, whatever it is, it's kept in a tub of a special fluid, and either it's actual matter, of which I assume it was a physical thing, or in very small amounts, the secretions filtered through the liquid it was kept in delivered some kind of miracle agent. This agent was used in basically most of their exotic programs in some form, usually highly modified. It had properties of extreme general resistance, extreme space exposure resistance, extreme base/acid resistance, basically insanely max stats. Keep in mind, all of this is talked about in codes and shit, like it wasn't but it was. There were no pictures, in my opinion, on purpose. It could have easily been a well or something, also. Honestly, no idea. There were teams with like 3 mil budgets dedicated to finding solutions and alternatives to these substances with no luck. They wanted this bad, whatever the fuck this was. They wanted more. It was bar none like a top mission statement or goal, I guess, I don't know. Anyway, and then I basically never went back, except once, but then the access that I used did not work. Probably because this was before Snowden and the hardening. Anyway, that is my story. I have no idea who, what country, why, where, or any other pieces really. It had to be at least a state, that much I am certain. Only a nation state could be behind that. There was honestly so much I could not even scratch the surface. If they had immortality, or back-to-life chemicals, or cure for cancer, it was probably in there, in those files. 2 friends and myself went hiking in the desert hills of New Mexico. As we climbed up the canyon, we came into an area that seemed like a natural theater room. Along the rock walls were all kinds of inscriptions that looked like astrological symbols. I don't really know, that's just what they looked like to me. It had many spots that were melted wax. There was an altar too that had melted wax-like candles that were left to completely burn. Further up along the cliffside, I found binoculars with a built-in camera. They were pretty weathered. There was a pair of broken sunglasses next to them. As we went across the canyon and into a cave, there were more odd symbols in it. There were also these vials of liquid that looked like water. Inside the cave floor, there were tons of clothes. They looked like men's clothes. We dug with branches and kept pulling up clothes until we gave up. We hiked back down to the base of the canyon, and there were many large, black trash bags. We for sure thought that they were going to be bodies, but every one of them was full of clothing. Men's, women's, and children's clothes. We also found women's underwear thrown into brush and cacti. If that was not weird enough, when we continued walking along the canyon floor, I spotted a pack of cigarettes resting on a ledge. The pack of cigarettes was pretty new, and only one cigarette was removed from the pack. It was like someone just took off running and left the cigarettes behind. It was a bizarre afternoon for sure. We don't know if it was a cult or homeless people there. Or a cult possibly sacrificing homeless people there maybe. Who knows? I know that we saw no blood for sure.